I got your bitch with me, nigga. I got your bitch. I got your bitch with me, nigga. I got your bitch. And she loving this thug and shit. Hey.
Put your tongue in your mouth.
Calling me and my family out that name. Come on, man. Come on, man. Slaughter gang shit. I'ma fuck one of y'all. But swear to God, I ain't gonna do no more talking. When I see you, it's on sight. When I see you, it's on sight.
You know, if I had to roll myself to your motherfucking house in a wheelchair, if I lose my kidney, I'ma roll myself to your house, knock on your door, and I'ma shoot you goddamn in your fucking face.
On June 13th, 2025, a man kept a fatal promise he'd been making for months. He fired bullets through a window into an apartment in DeKalb County, Georgia, killing 29-year-old Tamikia Pullins and 7-year-old Dior Scott. But here's what makes this case different from countless other domestic violence tragedies. The killer had announced exactly what he planned to do on Facebook Live, detailing how he would spray bullets into a family home, even with children playing inside. The family heard these threats, reported them to police, and tried desperately to get protection, but nothing worked. This is the story of 48-year-old William Lewis Almond, a convicted felon with decades of violent crime behind him. Before we get to that devastating Friday afternoon, let me take you back to where this nightmare really began, because what unfolded wasn't just one explosive moment. In the early days of 2025, Tamikia Pullins, who was married to William Lewis Almond, had made the decision that saved countless domestic violence victims. She left. Moving in with relatives on Columbia Drive, she put physical distance between herself and William Almond, the estranged husband whose behavior had become increasingly dangerous. She did everything the system tells abuse survivors to do, reporting incidents to police, seeking legal protection, and surrounding herself with family who could help keep her safe. Despite these precautions, Almond had already decided that if he couldn't have control over her, no one would. Understanding who William Almond was before June 13th requires looking at more than 2 decades of criminal history. This wasn't someone who suddenly snapped under pressure. Between 1998 and 2002, he served 4 years in Georgia State Prison for aggravated assault, burglary, and drug trafficking. That first prison term would prove to be just the beginning of his involvement with the justice system. A second incarceration followed from 2006 to 2011 on similar violent charges. Throughout the years between and after these prison sentences, his arrest record accumulated charges ranging from entering automobiles and possession of burglary tools to multiple probation violations and battery. What's critical here is his status as a convicted felon, which meant that under both federal and Georgia state law, he was permanently prohibited from possessing firearms. That legal restriction would prove meaningless when it mattered most. The first incident of 2025 set the tone for everything that followed. On New Year's Day, Almond forced his way into the Columbia Drive apartment where Tamikia had taken refuge. And according to testimony from Tamikia's father, Timothy Pullins, Almond struck his daughter with a gun simply because she didn't laugh at his jokes. Think about the thought process behind that for a moment. Using a deadly weapon to punish someone for not finding you amusing. Beyond this assault, he pushed in a bedroom window and damaged property throughout the residence, creating chaos and demonstrating that locked doors wouldn't keep him out. The resulting charges piled up quickly: home invasion in the first degree, aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, aggravated assault in the context of family violence, and criminal damage to property. Police arrived to take the report and document the scene. Then Almond simply walked away, disappearing into the network of addresses he maintained across the Atlanta metro area, in places like Decatur, Snellville, Covington, and Stone Mountain. The family watched him leave, already knowing with a sinking certainty that this wouldn't be the last time they'd see him. Their fears proved justified less than 2 months later, when on February 22nd, Almond assaulted Tamikia again. This time, the violence took an even deadlier turn. He strangled her, placing his hands around her throat and cutting off her air supply. Anyone familiar with domestic violence research knows that strangulation represents one of the most significant red flags for future homicide. Studies consistently show that when an abuser puts their hands around a victim's neck, the statistical likelihood of that victim eventually being killed by that same abuser increases dramatically. In addition to this life-threatening assault, Almond stole Tamikia's belongings. Officers responded once more to take another report and only upped the charges to include aggravated assault with strangulation and theft by taking. Once again, before any arrest could be made, Almond vanished into the metro Atlanta area, staying just out of reach of the legal consequences that should have been closing in on him. The family's desperation intensified with each incident. Tamikia's mother, Nikita Bruce, began telling anyone who would listen about the threats Almond was making, warning that his promises of violence were becoming more explicit and more frequent. They initiated the process of obtaining a restraining order, only to encounter a bureaucratic catch-22. You can't serve someone with a protective order if you can't physically locate them. While William Almond had become expert at evading service of legal papers, he remained highly visible in another arena entirely. By early June, the threats had transformed from private intimidation to public declarations. Almond told the family repeatedly in explicit terms, "If my child don't come back to him, he would pop every kid in here. He don't care who it is. He will kill everyone in this house." As Bruce would later emphasize to reporters, "He done told us plenty of times," the repetition making it clear that these were promises, not empty bluster. Just 10 days before the murders on June 3rd, Almond committed sexual battery against Tamikia. The family recalled another terrifying encounter around June 6th, when he entered the home and held a gun directly to her head without pulling the trigger. Rather than being a moment of restraint, this was psychological torture, a demonstration that he held her life in his hands and could end it whenever he chose. Looking at this timeline reveals the systematic nature of the escalation. Between January 1st and June 13th, DeKalb County Police responded to at least 3 separate domestic violence calls involving these 2 individuals. Each incident involved more violence than the previous one, and every time, Almonds demonstrated increased willingness to use deadly weapons. In the days immediately preceding June 13th, Almond's behavior on social media became increasingly unhinged and threatening. He increased his Facebook rants, delivering deadly threats filled with intention to follow it through. William also warned people not to provoke him into posting on Facebook, threatening that by the time they called the police or his probation officer, it would be too late to stop what he'd already set in motion. He promised violence on sight, meaning the moment he encountered his targets, he would act without warning or hesitation.
Man, slaughter gang shit. I'ma fuck one of y'all. Why? Swear to God, I ain't gonna do no more talking. When I see you, it's on sight. When I see you, it's on sight.
Perhaps most revealing was his attitude towards consequences. He repeatedly stated that he wasn't scared to go back to prison. His targets extended not just to Tamikia, he directed threats at her brother, whom he referred to with insulting names, and towards anyone else who had supported her decision to leave the relationship. He made statements like, "I will shoot you goddamn in your face." In another particularly disturbing declaration, he claimed that even if he had to roll himself to their house in a wheelchair, even if he lost his kidney to medical problems, he would still show up at that door. The family certainly saw or heard about the videos, as evidenced by Nikita Bruce's desperate attempts to get authorities to take action before something terrible happened. They reported what they were seeing and hearing, trying to impress upon police that these weren't idle threats, but concrete plans being announced in advance. Meanwhile, they continued their unsuccessful attempts to serve the protective order paperwork, frustrated by the fact that Almond could be visible enough to post threatening videos online while remaining impossible to locate for legal service. Then came Friday, June 13th. Inside the apartment on Columbia Drive that afternoon, several adults and children had gathered, creating the family environment where Tamikia had sought safety. Among them was 7-year-old Dior Scott, and her family described her as always dancing, full of life, with a smile that could light up any room. Her favorite color was purple, and she just finished kindergarten with her 8th birthday scheduled for July 3rd. She was a little girl who should have been looking forward to summer vacation and another year of school, completely innocent of the adult conflicts that would cost her everything. Despite William Almond's repeated promises that he didn't care who was in the house when he came for Tamikia, nothing had been done to ensure Dior's safety. At approximately 2:48 in the afternoon, William Almond arrived at the apartment. When he attempted to enter, the people inside refused to open the door, a decision based on everything they knew about his history and his recent threats. Their caution was well-founded, but it couldn't protect them from what came next. Denied entry through the door, Almond broke a window and began firing multiple rounds into the apartment. The shooting wasn't carefully aimed at a single target. Instead, he fired indiscriminately into space, doing exactly as he had promised to do in his online broadcasts. The bullets struck both Tamikia Pullins and Dior Scott, causing fatal injuries. When officers arrived and found them in the living room, neither victim was breathing. Emergency responders attempted life-saving measures, but the injuries were too severe and Dior was pronounced dead. Other adults and children inside managed to escape without physical injuries, though the psychological trauma of witnessing such violence would stay with them forever. As for William Almond, he ran from the scene just as he had after previous incidents. This time, however, the response was different. With 2 bodies left behind and multiple witnesses to the shooting, DeKalb County Police immediately launched a manhunt.
Carly, Blair, as anyone at home could imagine, the family is completely distraught, still trying to process what took place earlier today. But the mother of one of the victims did want to speak with us tonight in hopes of saving others from what police are calling a case of domestic violence.
We try, because it's hard.
A mother grieves the sudden loss of 2 beloved souls, showing us a picture of her daughter, Tamikia Pullins, who died trying to protect 7-year-old Dior Scott.
Trying to protect her from all of this. But now we see some people don't want to let go.
Police say Nikita Bruce's daughter and little Dior are victims of domestic violence. Our First Alert chopper flew over the significant police response shortly after the shooting happened at this apartment complex off Columbia Drive Friday afternoon. DeKalb County Police say Pullins' estranged husband, 48-year-old William Almond, tried to enter the apartment. When he couldn't get in, police say he broke a window before shooting inside, killing both Pullins and Scott.
If you are in a domestic violence, cut ties with them, block them, everything. My daughter was reaching out for help, and I shouldn't be saying it, but the cab let her down.
Police say Almond immediately ran from the area before being caught and arrested hours later.
Within hours, DeKalb SWAT officers located and arrested him, transporting him to DeKalb County Jail, where he has remained without bond ever since. For the first time in 6 months, William Almond couldn't evade the consequences of his actions. The aftermath brought waves of grief that crashed over the family and community. Tamikia's funeral service was held on June 28th at Central Holiness Church in Atlanta, with viewing the day before allowing friends and family to say their goodbyes. Dior's services took place at Rainbow Park Baptist Church in Decatur on June 25th and 26th. Family members struggled to articulate their loss while also expressing frustration with how the situation had been handled. Timothy Pullins didn't mince words when discussing the police response. In his interview with WSB-TV, he stated with devastating clarity, "They did not do enough to save my daughter." His statement outlined the pattern that had played out repeatedly over those 6 months. Police would be called after Almond committed violent acts against Tamikia, reports would be filed documenting the abuse, and then Almond would simply leave before being arrested. Each time this cycle repeated, the danger to Tamikia escalated while the window of opportunity to prevent tragedy narrowed further. The broader community response reflected similar frustration and grief. DeKalb County CEO Michael Thurmond issued a public statement expressing condolences and mourning the loss, but for many observers, official statements felt inadequate in the face of such preventable deaths.
That is completely senseless. Not only do we have 2 lives tragically lost, but one of them a child who's just getting started.
The legal system's response began to unfold in the months following the murders. On September 5, 2025, a DeKalb County grand jury handed down an indictment charging William Almond with more than 30 separate criminal offenses. The murder charges alone are extensive. Almond faces 2 counts of malice murder, 1 for each victim, representing the intentional and premeditated nature of the killings. Beyond that, he faces 5 counts of felony murder, charges based on the legal principle that deaths occurring during the commission of certain underlying felonies constitute separate murder charges even without specific intent to kill. The assault charges trace the entire history of abuse. Multiple counts of aggravated assault cover both the June 13th shootings and the previous incidents throughout the year, with specifications for family violence and assault with a deadly weapon reflecting the various ways Almond had terrorized Temecula. Aggravated assault by strangulation specifically addresses the February attack, that critical warning sign that experts recognize as a predictor of lethal violence. The charges involving Dr. Scott are particularly heartbreaking. Multiple counts of cruelty to children reflect both the direct harm of killing a 7-year-old child and the trauma inflicted on other children who witnessed the violence or were present during the shooting. Additional charges paint a picture of comprehensive criminality. Sexual battery from the June 3rd incident demonstrates the range of abuse Temecula endured. Home invasion in the first degree reflects the January 1st break-in when he forced his way into the apartment with a weapon. Criminal damage to property and theft by taking cover the property crimes committed during various assaults. Multiple counts of terroristic threats and acts directly address all those promises to kill everyone in the house, the explicit death threats that Almond made repeatedly and eventually carried out. Harassing communications and stalking charges capture the ongoing pattern of harassment and pursuit. Then there are the firearms charges, which highlight a fundamental failure in the system. 2 counts of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon and 2 counts of possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony acknowledge a simple fact. William Almond, with his decades-long criminal history and multiple felony convictions, should never have been able to access a gun under any circumstances. The DeKalb County District Attorney's Domestic Violence and Sexual Assault Unit is handling the prosecution, recognizing the specialized nature of these crimes and the patterns specific to domestic violence cases. After a preliminary hearing in Magistrate Court on August 7, 2025 established probable cause, the case moved forward to Superior Court. Almond was formally arraigned on December 29, 2025, appearing virtually from his jail cell for the reading of charges. The case is expected to proceed to trial sometime during 2026, already flagged as one of the major criminal prosecutions in the Atlanta metro area for the coming year. As of today, January 10, 2026, William Almond remains incarcerated in DeKalb County Jail without bond, held on charges that could result in life imprisonment or even the death penalty given the aggravating circumstances, the murder of a child, multiple victims, and the extensive premeditation evidenced by his repeated threats. Whatever sentence William Almond ultimately receives, however, it won't change the fundamental reality that 2 people are dead. Legal consequences for the perpetrator don't undo the tragedy or answer the haunting questions about whether this could have been prevented. Most importantly, they don't address the broader patterns this case exemplifies about how the justice system handles domestic violence.
My daughter was reaching out for help, and I shouldn't be saying it, but the cab let her down.
In this particular case, unlike so many others, there was extensive documentation of everything. Multiple police reports created an official record of the pattern. Witnesses could testify to what they'd seen and heard. Despite all of this documentation, the clear and escalating pattern, the specific threats against children, Temecula Pullins and Dr. Scott still ended up a Friday afternoon in June. The family's grief is compounded by the timing of what was lost. Temecula's 30th birthday would have been July 3rd, a milestone celebration that never happened. Dior had her own birthday approaching, looking forward to turning 8 years old and continuing her journey through childhood. Instead of planning birthday parties and celebrating life, the family had to arrange 2 separate funerals. This tragedy forces uncomfortable confrontations with how American society handles domestic violence. When someone has a documented history of violence spanning decades, they make explicit threats that include killing children. They've already committed multiple assaults and demonstrated both access to weapons and willingness to use them, and they openly broadcast their intentions to commit murder. What additional evidence or warning signs are required before the system can effectively intervene to protect potential victims? How many times must someone call the police? How detailed must the death threats become? How public do the promises of violence need to be before protective measures actually succeed in preventing the promised harm? Let me know what you think about this in the comments section below. Click on one of the cards on your screen to see more videos like this.